Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Bill Froehlich, your host from WTCM Radio News. It's our weekly roundup of some of the stories making news across northern Michigan with the journalists covering those stories. And it's my pleasure to welcome a couple of sports guys back to the table. We've got James Cook from the Traverse City Record-Eagle. Welcome back.
Thanks. How you doing?
Good, thanks. And welcome back to Mike Misico as well from the Kalkaska Leader and ESPN Radio.
That's right.
Contributor there as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to be back.
Good to have you guys with us, and we have been talking for a few weeks about how we wanted to do a sports show this week because we're coming off the NFL draft and we've got baseball season. And at the time we first talked about it, we were the potential for the Red Wings to be in the playoffs. But on a much sadder note, obviously, we've got a big news story that's very sports related this week as well. So it's timely and topical to have you guys in to talk a little bit about what happened with the Grayling golf team this week. And Mike, I know you've been kind of right in the middle of that. And for those folks who are joining the game a little late here, the accident in Kalkaska with a couple of minivans that claimed 3 lives and injured 7 others. Most of those injuries from the Grayling golf team. Mike, with the death of the coach, one of the players, I guess what really interested me about where you're coming from is you were at that 8-team invitational at the Grand Traverse Resort that day where that team was heading. Tell me when you first heard about it and briefly take me through what you described as kind of the wave of information going through all the other young men out there.
Right. Well, this was a tragic event. 3 people died. The Grayling golf coach, an 18-year-old player, and also a young mother from Kalkaska. So this is, we've dealt with tragedies. We've seen things in the sporting realm. This takes it to another level. This is absolutely horrific. Young lives affected, forever changed, families. I've covered the Lake Michigan Conference for a long time. I know a lot of these kids. I've watched them throughout the years in different sports as well. I was at the Grand Traverse Resort on Monday as word of this began to spread. And like I mentioned earlier, they were at first not wanting to tell the kids about this. They were wondering, where's Grayling, and they knew there had been an accident. No one knew the severity. As the match progressed and as we went through hole to hole, you could see that information start to flood in, whether it's social media, text messages, anything like that. It's hard to keep information under wraps nowadays.
So you see the kids.
You see the kids
start talking or pulling out their smartphones.
Right. You see the kids on their phones. You could see the mood change, and it was a very surreal experience. It was almost like it started to, flood from hole to hole. You could see the mood change. You could feel it changing the atmosphere. The looks on the faces. It no longer was a fun time out there with your friends. The reality started to sink in. Athletic directors and coaches got together. They determined to tell the rest of the teams of the kids out there what had happened, and they made a decision, which I think is a great decision, to suspend the rest of the match. And it was just very, very sad time as you saw the kids exiting and coaches exiting the course, and you could feel and you felt for them.
Well, and a lot of reasons obviously to call off the match at that point, but what was the sense you got? Did they all go back to the clubhouse and just sit with each other for a minute, or
no?
What happened from there?
Pretty much immediately, and it happened fast. They started escorting kids by groups off the course, and essentially they were out of there pretty quickly. I believe the thought of it was, as news of this was spreading, whether radio, television, they were afraid that the place would soon become flooded with news reporters, television cameras, things like that, and they did not want that attention on these kids at these times, who were just at that point trying to begin to process what had happened.
What reactions did you see from coaches and players? I imagine, just like you, a lot of these other high schoolers knew a lot of the Grayling kids too.
Right. Guys, golf is unique in a way because unlike a football game or anything else, you're not a bitter rival. You're not lining up across from somebody trying to knock them out. You see these kids out on the course, and there's groups of them together any given day, walking 18 holes together.
Yeah, it's much more social.
It's social, more personable.
Yeah, you get to know the people from the other team.
Exactly.
More than
and these kids knew each other.
Something.
They all knew each other. They've spent a lot of time with them. The camaraderie out there is amazing because you see these kids, sportsmanship. Awesome shot, or they're trying to help the guy they're going against, the other team. Hey, try that next time. Things like that. But so definitely the coaches, many of them, Coach Jason Potter from Grayling, first-year coach. Many of these coaches had known him prior, and this was the second conference match of the year, so they had got to know him even more the week prior. It was just a devastating experience, and like I say, you could see it in their faces. It was a very, very surreal, moment, knowing that these kids are either gone, the coach is gone, or they are severely, severely hurt.
James, anything about this story that kind of jumps out at you? What's your first reaction when hearing this? And obviously, it makes waves through every newsroom, sports office, etc.
Yeah, it's just something that's hard to cover, and it just kind of shows you the game itself is almost trivial in comparison. When something like this happens, you lose a coach, you lose an 18-year-old kid who was going to go to the University of Michigan, a community member in Kalkaska and everything like that, and it just puts a lot of things in perspective.
Well, it's like you said, something to this magnitude just doesn't happen hardly ever.
Right.
I can't even remember the last time we've had something close to this, where it's 2 cars, 10 victims of varying injury or death, and just so much impact to a lot of different communities. Coach Potter, Lewis Menard, and then Cassie Stapleton, the victim in the other car. And I know you guys did a sports show on ESPN Radio. It's 1067, is that right?
1067.
Last night, talking to community members, when I tuned in, you had one of the dads of one of the kids in the hospital on the radio. Wow, what a great broadcast just to bring that community together to talk about it.
Yeah, we went into that. It was uncharted waters. Let's face it. You know the radio business.
Well, it's one that you got to turn the microphone on and just see what happens.
Right. Like we were saying last night, there's no instructions for this. There's no roadmap.
Yep.
We went into this as an open forum, essentially for people to come out and pay tribute to these people, 3 people that lost their lives, to offer prayers and words of support and encouragement for these families, for the kids that are still in the hospital clinging to life even. And the outpouring was amazing. It was overwhelming at times. It was extremely humbling experience to go through, to hear from the dad of his son is in a coma and might not make it. Very, very overwhelming, but I think it was a great thing. If anything, if we could provide any sort of any way to begin the healing process at all, that's great.
Again, there's a range of injuries, and I guess maybe being into that community, knowing those players, coaches, family members, in a way, you're, from a media perspective, you kind of have the upper hand in knowing what's going on. Social media has obviously helped that a lot as well. I've got a few friends in Grayling where I'm seeing some of these updates. But as you said, we've got a kid in a coma, one that looked like was going home yesterday or is about to go home, but obviously has physical injuries just from the photos that have been shared.
Right.
What's your understanding of the range of injuries? At last I heard we had the one still in critical condition, a few in serious condition, and a few in fair condition.
Right, and that would be right. One, and I believe it was I want to say Gunnar Metzer is the young man who was released yesterday.
Okay.
He is home, although he still has an uphill battle. But he is home with his family, and that's huge. That's great. We talked to Dallas Johnson from his hospital bed. He called in. He's not out of the woods 100%, but he's going to be okay. There are two young men that are still in very serious condition. One of them is going into surgery today, which would be Thursday. Suffered burns and other injuries. There's two of them that aren't out of the woods and are in very serious condition still.
This is it's a hard story to talk about, and it's one that's not going to go away. I mean, obviously, golf season is on hold, and from a sporting perspective, things are just not the same, at least for the rest of this school year.
Right. I've talked to a bunch of area coaches and athletic directors. There's another conference meet or golf match scheduled for tomorrow, at Friday at Grandview in Kalkaska. They talked to Grayling athletic directors and coaches. We're talking with Grayling officials. Grayling insisted that the match go on, and that's going to be a very hard thing for these kids to get back out there and do this. But I think that's great. Grayling says to press forward, and these guys are going to go out there and do this in honor of these people that were injured and lost.
One last question on this topic. I had heard, and tell me if I heard rightly or wrongly, there are 24, half a dozen, I don't know how many, there are lots of members of the Grayling golf team. These were 6 that were chosen to go to this particular meet on Monday. Are there others that will play still this year? And obviously that was a huge factor in notifying parents and trying to figure out, nobody knew who was going to that meet when everyone went off to school Monday morning, so there was a confusion about which kids are these 6 that were involved.
That's the thing about golf. When you go to these events, you take a select handful of people. In this case, we know how many, but they, I believe I want to say there's 16 kids. The golf program in Grayling is strong. It's an amazing program. Coach Potter just took this over, heading in the right direction. Numbers, great foundation. I want to say 16 kids on this team total. There's no word yet as to if they're going to suspend the rest of their season or not. From what I'm seeing out of Grayling, I would not be surprised if these kids rally together and continue playing the rest of the season out on the golf course.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a break here on the briefing room. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the other spring sports and look at some of the positive news in sports. We'll talk Red Wings, Tigers, and NFL draft right after this on the briefing room.
What is Up North TV?
It's TV that you do.
You pick the topic.
You write the script. You run the camera.
You edit the video.
It's your vision.
Your perspective.
Your story.
Commercial free.
Free speech.
What is Up North TV?
It's me.
It's you.
It's all of us.
View us on Analog 97.
Cable digital too.
Digital 992.
UpNorthMedia.org.
Welcome back to the briefing room. I'm your host, Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio News, and we're talking with Mike Misico and James Cook, another edition of sports edition rather of the show. James, let me turn it over to you. One of the other big local stories that we're dealing with across northern Michigan has been this spring weather. You tell me, what have you heard from local schools, athletic directors about track and baseball and just the impact that this strange weather has had on us?
Well, it's condensing the whole season. I mean, you have schools that are canceling non-conference games in baseball and softball to try to get in all their league games so that they can try to, have a full league season and stuff like that. Unfortunately, some of the teams up here that usually go downstate and play some of the really good teams from down there and everything like that are having to cancel those games against those really good teams so that they can get their conference games in. So, those, not getting that top level competition or extra games against top level competition can maybe hurt come playoff time. But you're just seeing these teams play almost every day. I mean, there's one coach I talked to the other day that said that they were playing 4 times in 5 days. And, wow. I mean, it's just crazy. The schedule is so condensed because you basically just lost like the first 3 weeks.
I was going to say, not only the schedule, but the practice season. I mean, you had snow on the ground on the baseball fields. You couldn't, unless you're going indoors, which I'm sure a lot of people did, you weren't getting that practice that you would normally get.
Right, and even at some of the Traverse City schools, especially I think at Central, after a while, the gyms at Central and West were just booked up because you had every team practicing inside every night at night. So at school, as soon as school got out until like 10 o'clock at night, there was somebody in the gym all the time. Baseball, softball, soccer, track, even all these teams, and there's only so much you can do inside in those sports. So Cody Inglis told me at TC Central, he said after a while the coaches just started not having practice because it's like you can only take so many grounders inside on flat gym floors before it really doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah. What have you heard up in the Kalkaska area, and is there maybe one sport that's more affected than the other this spring season?
I think they're on an even playing field this year, guys. Mother Nature was not kind this year to the spring seasons. This has been crazy. Just last week, many teams finally got out onto the field. Whether it be golf, baseball, softball, they've all been affected. I know for sure that as far as some softball and some golf and baseball teams that I cover specifically, they went directly from out of the gym to the next day getting the green light to play, and they went and played with no time on the field. That's crazy. I mean, right out of the gym onto the field into a game time situation. They're just getting going, and I can't believe it. We're in the beginning of May, and some teams have just played their first game. So, like James said, every spring sport is affected right now, and yes, and it's been a nightmare for athletic directors across the area. And right now, the focus is, like you said, fitting in these conference games. But I'll tell you what, come playoff time, we Northern Michigan teams are going to be in a definite disadvantage, without question, because they are rusty, and they're just now starting to try and break that rust off that was created over that long winter.
I mean, you had golf teams that were going downstate to play in tournaments a week or so ago, and that was their first round of golf in the spring. It was a competitive round. They hadn't even been outside yet.
Not even
but
outside
they went down.
the
But they go down to a tournament downstate or something like that, and that's their first time basically swinging the clubs outside of maybe a driving range.
Right, and the people I've talked to, the coaches, athletic directors, they've never. We're accustomed to bad weather. In the last few years, we're accustomed to late winters. Winter dragging on a little bit, but they are. They've never seen anything like this. This was something new for the books, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out towards the end of the shortened season and how our teams up here are able to do.
Well, maybe we'll, like you said, we're all on an even playing field. Maybe we'll all be equally rusty.
Maybe.
As we get
I hope so.
Yeah. Let's kind of do a rapid fire here in the last few minutes of a couple of other big stories. Something else new this year, CMU drafting the first round draft pick for the NFL this year. Give me your take on the NFL draft.
I mean, that was nice to see. I mean, I'm a CMU graduate myself and everything, so it was nice to see. You know, first pick called. You know, Central Michigan University, and I don't know. It's just pretty cool. I mean, CMU had more people drafted than the Big Ten until I think the 29th pick was the first guy from the Big Ten.
That's great.
Yeah, I wasn't shocked because I knew he would be up there, but it was just it was cool to see Central Michigan University at the top of the draft board, #1 pick in the 2013 NFL draft. That was something special.
What do you make of the pick itself, Eric Fisher? Tell us about what your read is on him.
I think he's a phenomenal player. I wish the Lions would have found a way to get this guy because he would have made our team better. And the instant he stepped out, this guy is NFL ready. He is big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's a great lineman. He's going to have a great NFL career. I'm not a huge fan of taking these guys so high in the draft. I don't know what's going on now. This is happening every year. I guess that's the way things are changing. And this was a pretty rough draft class overall, from what they say. But I think he is going to have a good NFL career. He's ready to go. Plug him in. You're all set.
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep draft class, but it didn't have the elite playmakers, you know, at the top of the draft that you see in a lot of drafts. That's why you saw the offensive linemen. I mean, 3 of the first 4 picks were offensive linemen. But it was a pretty deep draft. I mean, you were still getting quality players in the 3rd and 4th round that are going to step in and start right away for NFL teams.
What do you make of the what the Lions came away with on over the course of the draft there?
I generally like what they did. You know, I mean, the Ziggy Ansah pick is kind of boomer bust. You know, we'll wait and see. I think he's a good fit for their defensive system.
And he's the guy with little to no football experience, right?
Yeah, he's basically only played for 2 years in college. Before that, I think he was in track or something, you know. And but
whether he can withstand the test of the NFL, I guess durability and talent.
Yeah,
maybe
well, he hasn't had any issues so far in those 2 years. But you know, we'll see. He's got tremendous physical attributes for a defensive end, especially in the wide 9 that the Lions use. So they got a big end in him. They got a big end in Jason Jones on the other side that they signed as a free agent, and then they drafted another end later, who's also a fairly big defensive end. Actually, physically looks a lot like Cliff Averill. But I think you'll see more pressure up the middle now because they'll be able to take those 2 bigger ends than they've had before and kind of invert the line and be able to hold the outside edge and force the plays back into side to Sue and Fairley.
30 seconds, Mike. Give me your take on what the Lions come away with.
I give the Detroit Lions overall draft grade of a C+. We'll see what happens. I wasn't in love with the Ezekiel Ansah pick at #1, our #1 pick, the 5th overall. Wasn't in love with it. It's growing on me. They picked up Darius Slay, cornerback. He's going to do a good job. They picked up an offensive guard finally in the 3rd round, Larry Warford out of Kentucky. He's another good player. They have some talent here, but it is boom or bust. The Ansah, is he the Ansah? I don't know. No more Cliff Averill. No more Kyle Vandenbosch. I don't think he should play right away. Chances are he's going to play this season. There is upside. There is also a lot of downside. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they addressed a lot of other issues too. I mean, they upgraded at punter and they got themselves some depth at running back and wide receiver.
And for the first time, they're looking for a kicker.
Yeah. Well, we drafted a punter. Maybe he can kick field goals too. I don't know.
He can. He did everything at Appalachian State.
That's right.
He was the punter, he was the kicker, and the holder. Part of the reason why they drafted him too is
he could do all 3 at once.
He's held for left-footed kickers, and both the kickers the Lions have in camp are left-footed kickers, and the other punter that they have is never held for a left-footed kicker.
Well, listen, if you waste a draft pick on a punter, he better play this year. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he probably will.
We talked Eric Fisher. As I understand it, his roommate, either currently or at some point at CMU, was Darren Keaton from Traverse City West, TCU West graduate.
Yep.
And we got some good news because we were watching to see whether he would go at some point in the draft. That didn't happen, but Mike, you're telling us he is going somewhere.
From what I've heard, I believe that yesterday, which would have been Wednesday, he was picked up by the Cleveland Browns. If that is out there confirmed or not, I'm not sure, but that's what someone close to the situation told me yesterday.
At least there's interest there.
There is definite interest, and more than likely we could confirm that he has been picked up by Cleveland. That's awesome. It's another Traverse City graduate going on to the next level. Congratulations to him. He's a good talent too. I was surprised he didn't go in this draft at some point.
Okay, so I have to ask the CMU graduate, what's the bigger news, Eric Fisher or potentially having a TC kid going up to the NFL?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they were roommates for a year. They lived together. The whole offensive line, all 5 starters in the offensive line rented a house together for a year and everything like that. So that was pretty cool. But I mean, overall for the university, I think it's probably Eric Fisher. I mean, you can't buy publicity like that.
No.
And everything like that. Cleveland would be a good fit for Keaton, though. I mean, Keaton is a mauler at offensive guard, and when you've got a power running game with a guy like Trent Richardson, you need a big guard in there that's nasty, and Keaton is, and he can open up some holes in there for Trent Richardson.
Look, we're seeing local guys more and more playing at the collegiate level. And there's going to come a point in time when we're a hot spot and producing talent that's probably going even higher to that professional level in their respective sports. So this is pretty neat. This was great news.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we literally have 2 minutes left, so I want to take 30 seconds each. Let's talk about the Red Wings in the playoffs. James, let me start with you. Give me your sense as to how long we'll last this time around.
I think that they'll push, and when it comes down to it, I think they'll push Anaheim to 7 games, and we'll see how Game 7 goes. It didn't start very well in Game 1, but I think eventually they'll push them into Game 7. But the Wings look pretty good for long stretches of time in that Anaheim game in Game 1. They just cough the puck up once, and
right. When they're on. They seem to be doing.
Yeah. Well, every goal in that game was a power play goal. So you stay out of the box, give yourself a chance.
Mike, 30 seconds on the Wings.
I'm bummed out. I'm very happy. Congratulations to Detroit for keeping the playoff streak alive. Awesome. Was it 22 seasons?
22 years.
Why do we have to play the Anaheim Ducks? Because they always have our number. I am going to tell you right here now, Detroit will not win this series. They will implode. I picked them to win 1, maybe 2 games of this series, and then they're done.
Detroit Tigers. Tigers are something to be happy about. I mean, they've had a couple of good games. Lost to the Twins the other day, but coming off, 5-game win streak?
Yeah, they won 5 in a row, including sweeping the Braves. I mean, that was a nice homestand for them. Take 5 out of 6. Things seem to be coming around. Valverde hasn't blown up yet.
Still early, but
yet.
It's been a week, 2 weeks?
Yet.
It'll happen.
They brought up Ron Doan to fill in for Dotel in the bullpen, and he didn't do too much. They sent him back down to the minors yesterday after the game.
I keep thinking with Valverde, we know he probably will implode. The goal is to notice when that's happening and then just stop playing him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll
see.
Don't just let him keep going.
That's never happened before. Let's hope it happens. Look, Detroit Tigers won 6 of their last 10 games overall. They set an American League record with at least 10 strikeouts in 6 games. That's huge. But that's coming from our starting rotation. We knew our starting rotation was going to be great.
Right.
It's our middle relief. It's our bullpen that is iffy. And our offense, when it's on, that's one of the reasons we won 6 of our 10 last games overall. Prince Fielder and some of this clutch hitting. But starting rotation is good. We knew that. We'll see what happens going forward. But 6 of 10 is not bad. And it's pretty neat, this strikeout record.
Yeah. Once Victor Martinez starts hitting, I think that you'll see that offense really come alive more than it did before. But he hasn't been contributing all that much early in the season. You know it will. I mean, he's been too good of a hitter for too long to not start hitting eventually.
Looking forward to it. Should be a good season. Guys, I want to thank you for joining us. James Cook from the Record Eagle, Mike Misico from the Kalkaska Leader and ESPN Radio. Thank you guys. And thank you for tuning into the briefing room. I'm Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio. Hope to see you again right here next week.